and God instead of commandments between man and man. How do we do that? There has to be some consensus because everyone is going to interpret it differently. Get 5 different people, right, to try to keep the Sabbath on their own without communicating, okay? And you're going to have 5 people establishing the day at a different time, saying that you could do this, saying you can't do this. There has to be some consensus, some agreement for Israel to move forward. This has nothing to do with God necessarily, apart from the statement that God tells us to establish judges and go to them in all areas of dispute. These people are fallible. However, it seems quite sophisticated that God wanted us to follow a court that he sanctioned, but the laws are still man-made, but we still have to follow them, even though they make mistakes. There's a whole tractate in the Talmud called Masechet Horayot that mentions the errors of the Sanhedrin, the errors of the oral law, and what sacrifice they have to bring when one of these errors occurs, saying that they make mistakes. So this is not clearly from God. However, it's sanctioned by God. Anyone who tries to interpret the Bible on their own is just trying to disorganize religion. They could be religious on their own, but try to be religious in the land of Israel. I'm not saying the state of Israel. The state of Israel, is a secular country. In biblical Israel, when there was a Sanhedrin adjudicating people for breaking Shabbat, adjudicating people for eating chametz on Pesach, all these things, there had to be some agreement on how it's done. The difference between how I teach the oral law and other people teach the oral law is that a Kabbalist will say the whole oral law was given at Mount Sinai. Now, anyone who reads it straight through knows that the oral law wasn't given at Mount Sinai. So that's what starts pissing people off and starts making people Karaites. Okay, I don't say that. I say just what Maimonides says, that the commandment we have to obey and believe in the oral law is Deuteronomy chapter 17. Parshat Shoftim, the commandment that God tells us that in all matters of dispute, we're to go to Jerusalem, i.e. the place that God chose, and inquire to the judge, the priest, and the Levite of those days. That's it.
Okay.
So
I will say that